Thank you for listening to the BjjBrick Podcast. We'll be bringing you Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and good times. We hope to flatten your Jiu-Jitsu learning curve, help you get the most out of your grappling ability, and meet your goals both on and off the mat.
Welcome back, my friends, to the BjjBrick Podcast. This is episode 336. We have Derrick Fury as our guest today. Derrick's a jiu-jitsu practitioner from the Houston area. He's also a writer and director, and he has a film out called The Lion Killer. It's a good movie. We talk a little bit about the movie, the plot. We talk a little bit about jiu-jitsu, so stay tuned for that. I'm on the line here with my good buddies Byron and Gary, who are both doing well and happy to be recording this podcast with me. Gary, tell us a little bit about this week's quote, since you're the Steve Irwin guy.
I'm the Steve Irwin guy? Okay. Steve Irwin, he has another quote this week. That's 2 weeks in a row. I believe that education is all about being excited about something. Seeing passion and enthusiasm always helps push an educational message. You know, I like how he talks about the passion and enthusiasm. And Byron, I think you might have went to the seminar, but I talk about a seminar I went to all the time.
Can I guess it?
Yeah.
Justin Rader.
Yep. Man, I tell you, if you guys have, and it's funny, Byron even knew what I was talking about. And Justin Rader, he's an incredible jiu-jitsu guy. I think he won the no-gi worlds, and I don't have his stuff up, so I'm not 100% sure, but he's just an incredible jiu-jitsu guy. Check out his school. He's got his own school there in Oklahoma City area. If that would be a great place to train with an instructor like that. But what I really took from this seminar is, I mean, he taught us a lot of great stuff, but I've never went to a seminar where I almost didn't even care what I learned. The guy is inspiring. The guy has passion and enthusiasm like nobody's business. I told him afterwards, I was like, you could be a motivational speaker. He has so much passion and I'm not saying, people who don't have that don't care about jiu-jitsu, but I don't think that you could sit there and listen to Justin talk about jiu-jitsu or show a move or show a technique with the passion and enthusiasm that he has, that you're not going to be in it. Like if he was a high school teacher, a college teacher, a grade school teacher, I think more people would pass his class. I think he would have a much higher percentage of people, getting A's and B's and C's and passing than any other class because of his passion and enthusiasm. I really like that quote. And to be honest, I didn't read the quote beforehand. While I was reading the quote, all of a sudden Justin Rader just popped into my head. And I've still never had an instructor. I don't care if it's in business, anything I've learned in business, somebody teaching me, school, any type of school I've been to, or jiu-jitsu, that showed the passion and enthusiasm that he does. And kudos to him.
Gary, I love how you kind of brought in the topic of school teachers and stuff. And I bet you the teachers that had the most influence on your life, you look back through grade school and junior high and stuff, they weren't the teachers. It wasn't the math teacher that knew the most about math or had the highest degree from the highest college, or it wasn't the history teacher that knew the most about history. It was the teachers that were passionate about that subject and were invested in their students.
Joe, I do agree with that. And I can talk about a teacher I had, Miss England. I was pretty... I bet most teachers did not like to have me in my class, especially in grade school. High school, I became a little bit better of a student. But, I was always joking around. I would always get in trouble. I was that kid. And, in I think it was 6th or 7th grade English, as I had Mrs. England. And I will tell you, I did not like English. I did not like school. But I never forget, like back in those days, teachers didn't really talk to your students. They just taught. They wouldn't get to know a student. And I remember Miss England was probably the first teacher I ever had that would actually talk to me, and ask me questions about myself. Like, what did you do this weekend? how are you? And I never really had that before. And that teacher really, that I still remember her to this day. And whenever everybody asked me what teacher influenced me the most, and it was her. And it's just because somebody just took the time to know me and ask me questions. I never had that before.
Yeah, so we wouldn't propose to tell anybody how to be an instructor or run a school, but having a passion for jiu-jitsu and a love for your students is probably a pretty good place to start.
Yeah, and you said we wouldn't tell anybody how to run a school. I would say emulate Justin Rader.
Okay, there you go. You heard it here first.
I don't think you could go wrong with that. I mean, in all reality, from what I've seen.
Yeah, that's a great quote by Steve Irwin. I look at it from the opposite side, as from the student. If you're excited about something, man, it gets easier to learn that topic. If you're passionate about a certain technique in jiu-jitsu or sweep or submission, whatever, take that excitement and really go all the way with that, and it becomes really easy to learn. If you're learning something that doesn't excite you that much, it's going to be a lot harder for you to grasp and learn and retain. Same thing with school. If you go to school and you really are pumped about science, go for that and take as much science as you can and really get in deep on that. Let your passion push you a little bit, because ultimately it'll push you, to where you end up going, with the rest of your life as an adult. And Gary, I think, has a life lesson from adulthood and from working. Gary, what do you have this week for our off the mat lesson?
I don't think I've really ever reached adulthood, so I don't know if you could really say that. I'm like an overgrown kid. But hey, I do have a life lesson this week, and one thing you guys probably know is I'm a banker, and basically on the lending side. But I do make a mistake. We have collateral to go pick up. It may be a car, it may be a house. Who knows? But I'm talking about this one time where I worked for another financial institution, and we had a home that a person had stopped paying on, and I needed to go out and maybe make contact. Couldn't make contact with anybody, so find out what is going on. So the home is in a very, I guess, not great area of town. And so they sent me out because I had 1 year of jiu-jitsu under my belt, and they figured I was the most equipped to go out to that area.
You probably were.
Yeah, well, I don't know about that, but so I just remember, the very first time I go out there, and it's a house on a corner in not a great area, and I knew where I was going, so I kind of picked going a little bit early in the morning, which I thought would be a little more safer time. But so as I go out there, there's no signs of cars in the driveway, but I noticed a whole bunch of extension cords coming from the neighbor's house, going into the house that I was going to look at. So I go up and knock on the door, no answer, nothing happens. House looks kind of run down, but I still couldn't get over the extension cords, all coming from the neighbor's house. So I decide to go over and knock on the neighbor's house, and make up contact with the neighbor and find out that the person who lived in that house had passed away. So the neighbor, seeing an opportunity, basically rented out the house on his own. Didn't know the neighbor, but knew the neighbor had passed, so turned it into a rental for this person. And since the regular person died, all the utilities were shut off. So, he had to provide utilities for his renters. So, hence the extension cords. So I talked to this person and said, hey, you can't do that. I need your people out. I'm going to have to take over this house. So he got the people out. I gave him like a week. And so a week had passed, and, it was time to, go take over that house. So what I did is I was going to go board all the windows up and get the locks changed on the house. And remember, I still hadn't been inside or anything, or even been by it since day one. But I did make contact with a neighbor, so-called landlord, and he said, he was going to have everything taken care of, and they were all out, so I can come by and come back. So I waited like a day or two, and then I decided to go out there and board up the windows. I called a locksmith to meet me there, and so I don't remember the time, but let's say I was going to go there at 10 o'clock. I told the locksmith to meet me there at 10:30. So I drive by at 10 o'clock, the time I was going to get there, and I see a whole bunch of people on the porch just drinking beer, kind of younger individuals. So when I say younger, probably 18 to 22. And I did not get a good feeling, and I did not want to go up there because I may have never made it back alive. So I ended up driving back to the office and got back to the office about 10:30. And all of a sudden, about 10:35, the phone rings. And it's the guy from Busy Bee Locksmith. And what happened was I forgot to tell him not to show up. So the guy from the locksmith place basically got chased down the block and barely made it out alive. And, so I basically made a big mistake there.
Gary, I see your life lesson. Or to bring this back on the mat. So, it's a big thing these days, doing dojo storms. Getting a few of your best grappling buddies, going to the dojo and just storming it and showing them what's up. And if you're going to do a dojo storm, set a time, arrive, and work as a group. But if you change your mind, aka chicken out, tell your buddies dojo storm is off. And that way they'll know, because the locksmith didn't realize that the dojo storm was called off, and he went and stormed it by himself. Is that about accurate, Gary?
That's close to accurate. Like what my story was, or my life lesson, to drag this on the back is, planning. If you're going to go into jiu-jitsu, a jiu-jitsu tournament, you're probably going to have a plan of how you want to start out, and not all the time will it go that way, and you'll have contingency plans, but plan, have a main plan, have a contingency plan. Like, hey, I may want to come out and pull half guard. Not the half guard on the video I showed, I put on the BJJ by the month, but a real half guard. So, you got a plan. And what happened is I didn't necessarily have a plan. I was just going to show up and tell my buddy from the locksmith to show up a half hour later. And when you don't have a plan, everything can go haywire. And it didn't necessarily go haywire for me, but it went haywire for the other guy who just got out of there by the skin of his teeth and lived to tell about it.
That's a great life lesson, Gary, but I really thought this was going to be about resourcefulness. I thought that, we're talking about the neighbor there. He's looking at what he has and how can he maximize it. Yeah. He's like, well, I've got a house, but I can't really do nothing with it. But then the neighbor dies, and I can run some extension cords over there, and I can rent that house out. And I was thinking, like, by the time this airs, we're just wrapping up the jiu-jitsu by the month, first month of January. It's closed guard, and sometimes you got to be resourceful, and you might have a decent – yeah, so that's where I thought you were going.
Yep. See, there's other stories. But – even though I've now drugged this back on the mat, I will tell you a little bit more about this because it's not over yet. Just to keep the story going a little bit longer. But so then I ended up having to get those young men out of that place. I had to get the sheriff out there. And remember, this whole time, my boss and the boss's boss won't even show up to this place because they're too scared. So they send the guy with, now I probably got, 1 month of jiu-jitsu. So they're sending me out there because they think I'm the tough guy because I got jiu-jitsu. So, they won't even step in this neighborhood or anywhere near the house. So I get the sheriffs there, and the sheriffs come out and got everybody kicked out for me. And this time I was smart enough to go right as the sheriff called me and said everything was kicked out. So I had been telling all these stories to everybody at the office. So, they're terrified of what's going on there. So I then, after the sheriff calls, I've already got a bunch of plywood and I was getting ready to go board the windows up, but I said I needed somebody with me. I was like, hey, can I take another individual along? So I took my buddy along, and this guy's kind of scared of his own shadows. And so this neighborhood, like I said, is not very good. And this guy was scared to death to go. So of
course he was scared to death to go with you. The last guy that you took out there, you left hanging.
Well, I left this guy hanging too. Wait till you hear the story. So as soon as I pull up to the house, the whole way up there, I'm just making it sound horrible, just to even scare him more. So we pull up to the house, and I'm in a company truck. And as soon as he gets to, I fiddled around with like my keys so I didn't get out of the car. And as soon as he stepped out and shut the door, I took off. I drove around the block and left him there. He was so mad at me. But so then we come back. We board up I still have never been in the house. So I go in the house, and I'm telling you, there was no roof. The roof was gone. It looked like a missile had basically just been dropped from the sky and took out the whole roof, but did not explode. So there was actually a sunroof in the house. The toilet, since there's been no running water, people had been using the toilet. And
oh, great.
Yeah. So, I mean, that was insane. And let's put it this way. I actually took a picture of the toilet. This was back in the day before phones, so it was a Polaroid. I showed somebody a Polaroid picture, and they started gagging. And, that's without the smell. That's how bad that looked. But, I mean, there's drug paraphernalia everywhere. So I started putting the boards up, and I had the other guy check the neighborhood out just to check my back while I was pounding them in. So we got all the holes except for the roof. Somebody could easily climb up on the roof and get in. But so we got all the boards situated. So I was pretty happy about that and figured, I've got it all locked up good. And so we go back to the office. I tell everybody about it. Now the boss is feeling a little bit safer, so he wants to go out and check the house out. So like the next day we go out and check the house out. And remember, I boarded up. I was so proud of how good of a job I did. So we get there, and I noticed one of the boards on the side of the house was missing. Like it was totally taken off.
Yeah.
And we kind of look in, there's nobody there. And my boss is still a little afraid. So, where the door was that I boarded up, we knock on the door. And as soon as we knock out on the door, like 10 people jumped out the side window and just took off running. But, yeah, I mean, that really doesn't have any parts of the story. But I just wanted to tell you a little bit more about, kind of what happened afterwards. But, yeah, that was kind of a crazy foreclosure.
Gary, I'm just excited overall about how many new off-the-bat lessons we're going to get from your days, early days at a bank.
I'll give you, maybe we can get some car repo. I've got some pretty crazy ones of those too.
Sweet.
But those were the good old days. I don't go out as much and pull cars anymore. But that was kind of crazy.
Well, guys, I want to recommend you check out the BjjBrick shop when you get a chance. There's an audiobook on there. It's called 6 BJJ Training Games. They help you develop your game while you're actually rolling. And it just kind of sets different goals for you other than just like, I'm rolling. Yeah, of course, I'm trying to get a good position and submit the person. Let's change some of the parameters that you're playing in, and you're going to really discover some things about your own game that could really help you get better at jiu-jitsu. So check that out. It's $5.99. There's a link to the shop, or just go to the website and there's a little tab for the BjjBrick shop there, and you can check it out there. So it's an audiobook, much like a podcast. It's a little over an hour long. So and the money goes and helps supports the podcast. 6 BJJ Training Games.
Only 11 more months till Christmas. Perfect timing.
Well, Joe, I forgot. I was going to mention that last week, on our episode, but these make great Martin Luther King and President's Day gifts. They're both coming up. So, make somebody's President Day, make somebody's Martin Luther King Day. It'll definitely help their jiu-jitsu journey. Don't
forget Valentine's Day. Nothing says I love you more than listening to Byron for an hour.
Good luck if that's your plan. Good luck. Joe, where can somebody, so you interviewed Derrick Fury, director of Lion Killer. Where could this movie be watched?
Yeah, it can be watched on Amazon Prime. It can also be watched on a service called Tubi, and I've never used that service. It's a free movie and TV online service. And for some reason, that helps him spread the movie more, or he gets something more out of it. So if you're not familiar with Tubi, or if you don't have Amazon Prime, Tubi is free, so you can go over there and watch it either place.
Well, Joe, I was just about to say how excited I was because I guess we've had Amazon forever and my wife watches it, but I had no clue until last night. So I was like, cool, I can watch this on Amazon Prime, but I think I'll just go sign up for Tubi if he gets credit for it. So cool.
Yep. So, yeah, he did a really good job portraying jiu-jitsu in the jiu-jitsu community. So I really appreciate him coming on. BjjBrick community. I'm here with Derrick Fury. Derrick's a playwright, a filmmaker, a musician, a jiu-jitsu athlete, probably a lot of other things. Derrick, how you doing today?
Hey, what's going on? Comic book enthusiast.
Oh, all right. Very good.
A lot of things.
So, real quick, I got you here because you made a movie I found very interesting about jiu-jitsu. It's a movie about people that do jiu-jitsu. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, so I wrote, directed Lion Killer. I did more than that. We can talk about that later, but acted in the film, edited, produced along with my wife, a film called Lion Killer that is basically the story of a struggling jiu-jitsu instructor who, after the death of his teacher, inherits the struggling gym, and ultimately it's about two broken people. It's about the character of Michael, who meets a girl and she has a history of domestic abuse, and he has a history of trauma as well, and all this comes out, but it's basically about two broken people trying to fall in love but having to remove their own trauma and put their own baggage to the side to be able to do so. So it's a good watch.
Yeah, where did the concept, where did the idea come from? Do you have history, or do you know somebody that's dealt with this? Or
everybody I know's dealt with it. You know? Yeah, I mean, I've dealt with my own trauma, and the way I grew up, we were in and out of homeless shelters and, inner city and latchkey. I mean, you can apply any kind of, popular catchphrase to the way I grew up. It was very, very, I'd say more than eventful, a lot of traumatic experiences. And as you get older, if you carry you will carry all these past traumas into every relationship. If you've ever worked with somebody, anytime you talk to them, they just explode. They're not talking to you. They're talking to their dad or their stepdad. Sure. You know what I mean? They're not mad at you. They're mad at all these things that have happened to them. So, and growing up in and out of homeless shelters, you meet a lot of women that have a history of domestic abuse, and I've seen a lot of women struggle to come to terms with that. So, ultimately, man, as a filmmaker, as a writer, I feel like even before I knew I was going to make a movie or be a writer or do any of this stuff, I was kind of born kind of with the personality of you go through life and you kind of you're what's the word I'm looking for, not cataloging, but you're taking in experiences and committing them to memory.
Sure.
And so there was a lot of things that I've been through, and then a lot of things that I took creative license with that I may have seen happen to other people, and like I said, as a writer, you kind of go through life kind of categorizing or cataloging all those experiences. So sure. Archiving, I think archiving is the word I was looking for.
Yeah. I think you're right. You're not thinking about them every day, but they're back there somewhere, right?
Yeah.
They affect the way that you perceive the world around you and the way you interact with people. So I did want to give you kudos for something. You talked about the people that are struggling with all their issues and having to deal with those as you're going into relationships. I appreciate that the movie didn't the romance was not unrealistic. There wasn't a marriage proposal by the end of the movie. They weren't falling in the sack by 15 minutes in the movie, because that definitely is, I think, would be an irresponsible way to portray people trying to deal with trauma, because that's not the right way to do things. So I appreciate you keeping that realistic. I also appreciate that the jiu-jitsu in the movie it's not overly sensationalized to try and meet Hollywood standards. It's not flying
omoplatas and flying triangles.
Yeah, and I was real. Well, we could talk about that, but I'll talk about what you're saying about the love affair first, which is, I mean, for myself, if you come, it's kind of, it's, once again, we could do a deep dive into how I grew up, but I get around my friends and you could tell immediately that they grew up well. You know what I mean? Yeah. They grew up like they go on vacations with their family and they're excited to spend time with their family. And I scratch my head like, how does this, you're not trying, so, and then I realized, these people, they were raised well and in a supporting community, and they have a good life. Whereas the way I and my siblings, we were raised, it's you will take all that baggage with you, and unless you get to a place where you can do some work, whether that's through counseling or whether that's through jiu-jitsu, or whether that's through being honest with yourself or all the above, probably help of a religious organization, you'll take all that with you, but you'll come to a place where you have to lay that down to be successful, whether that's in relationships or business or to have a fulfilled, successful life. So I want to present the movie where you had two people who ultimately, not to give a spoiler away, but ultimately by the end of the movie are now capable to now they're ready to fall in love. Sure. So it's a story about being able to fall in love opposed to falling in love. And I guess to speak to jiu-jitsu, that was always the goal. Well, my goal is always to present everything authentically. So I'm a filmmaker and an independent filmmaker. So what money can buy you is special effects and a team of stunt doubles and all that. I didn't have all that. So, but what I had was myself and an entire community in Houston that are experts in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And there is that thing that when we were doing some of the rehearsals, and often the rehearsals for the scenes were right before we shot it, because when you're doing a independent feature, money also buys you time, and if you have the less money you have, the less time you have. So when you get a brown belt and a black belt or purple belt together, it can start to amp up. Mm-hmm. So there was a lot of, okay, let's not do the cartwheel pass, let's do this instead. But no, I really appreciate the fact that you think it's authentic jiu-jitsu, because the goal was to present the universe in which this movie occupied as an authentic, real, tangible universe that's true to the experience that I've had in jiu-jitsu.
So I noticed that you're an independent filmmaker. Mm-hmm. Is that your first
feature? I've done short films and music videos and all the good stuff.
When I was looking through the cast list, it looks like quite a few of them either only had one or two small credits previous to this. So do you want to give a shout out to any of them?
Yeah, well, yeah. So my goal to make this film was to make the best film with the money we had, the locations we had, and the actors we had as well. So we did do extensive. It was for an independent film in Houston. It was a pretty big, extensive audition process. So it wasn't like, hey, Johnny, I know you come over here and just be in my film. And it's also a lot of the people that I had in mind, even some people I know in the acting community that are also in the jiu-jitsu community, weren't interested. Yeah. So it was like, okay, so we did several to find the character of Michael, the male lead, who Matthew Meehan, who's a local talent out of Houston, ended up getting. He really had to compete for that role. So we whittled it down to about 3 or 4 guys. And the people with the higher history in jiu-jitsu were either busy. Look, this is the worst thing you can do if you want to be in film. Tell somebody that, oh, hey, we have an audition. Can you please come? You want to audition, and then give that make it difficult. Kind of give that person the runaround. So I got the runaround with some people that I knew were pretty good jiu-jitsu athletes, but either weren't interested or, hey, I got a tournament that, well, I can't schedule the shooting around your tournament career, right, unfortunately. So you're telling me off the jump that that if there's a tournament, you're not going to make it. So we're going to have to move on right now. So the 3-4 guys that ended up being at the top to get for the audition process didn't have much jiu-jitsu experience other than Matt, who had a little jiu-jitsu experience. He had done a smoker. And I vetted his story. I was asking about, because people just say that stuff in auditions. And he told me, oh, yeah, well, it was at 4 Ounce Fight Club. I'm like, okay, I don't know if they still do smokers, but about that time they were doing a lot of smokers. And he told me who he fought. I was like, yeah, I'm familiar with that person. And then the end of the story was, yeah, he got my back and he choked me out. And I'm like, okay, well, this story is probably pretty accurate. But so he had some connection with the culture and the community. He was an authentic guy, good looking, and really, when we got him and Regina together, Regina was already cast as the female lead, and she brings she had the majority of the experience in acting out of our crew. But when we got them together, their chemistry test was just through the roof. So they were the best together. So Matt ultimately got the role, even though he's not a purple belt, brown belt, or black belt. But the character of Michael needed a certain kind of earnestness that Matt brought, and that if you watch the film, I feel really comes across. Regina, who is our female lead, she's Chinese American, and probably wasn't getting a lot of the parts that were up to her ability. But we had someone else cast, and they dropped out early on. And so I reached out to her, and she came in and just gave a great audition. So I didn't write either the character of Michael or Regina with a certain race or look in mind, to be honest. Just I had a certain heart in mind for these characters. And Regina had the heart of Noelle. But other than that, she's attractive as well. She's a huge talent, and just ultimately right for the part, even though she was, as far as a look, she was the opposite of the person who was originally cast. But ultimately, when you're making a film, it's kind of like going for a technique. It's like, what did Hickson say? I never commit 100% to anything.
Sure.
So when I'm writing, I'm not going to commit 100%. Well, this is a blonde-haired, green-eyed person from Southern California.
Right.
An independent film game, you can't do that. So Regina came in, killed the audition, and other than that, she's the kind of person that lights up a room. So it's probably my take. Well, I would cast her for anything, because she walks into an audition room and she lights it up. She's fun. She's, she leaves the room and you're happy that, hey, I was just in a room with that person. So she was local to Houston at the time. Since then, she's gone on to move to Atlanta. Atlanta's really hot for film and TV right now. If you watch the ending credits for a lot of TV, you'll see the Georgia Peach at the bottom. So since then, she's gone on to be on episodes of Dynasty, of 2 episodes of Black Lightning. She just did an episode of Watchmen on HBO, and is the female lead on Lion Killer. So I think her career is just getting going, and she's you've seen the film. There were some heavy monologues in there that needed somebody who, back to my earlier statement, I couldn't just pick from my group of friends. Right. And then our bad guy in the movie is C.J. Hancock, who's a black belt out of Gracie Baja, former MMA fighter. Look him up online. He died in the ring. He'd be a good guest for you guys to have, because he actually, through cutting weight, he cut too much weight, and his heart stopped in the ring.
Okay.
And they had to pull out the defibrillators in the ring and bring him back to life. So he's been all kind of. They brought him back. He didn't. But his heart literally stopped. And
you had me for a minute. You said he died in the ring. He'd be a great guest for you guys. That'll be an interesting one to pull up. Okay.
I got all kind of strings I can pull, man. But So they brought him back, and he's got a crazy story with that, just as far as cutting weight and competing in MMA. But he was a guy who got cast because I was doing I used to do what do you call it, not a podcast, but just a web series.
Okay.
A web series called Uncaged, where I would interview just local MMA and BJJ fighters. And CJ was one of them. But after we were done, he was like, hey, man, if you got a part, if you got anything, I don't care if I'm working, I'll get free. I want to be a part of your stuff, which is kind of the opposite of, like I was saying earlier, which is a huge deal if you're trying to get into acting. If you're an actor out there and you're like, hey, how do I be available to work? Because I've had people that were cast the day of we're shooting saying, oh, hey, I got called into work. Well, one, all the wheels are in motion. We can't stop the motion, the motion, the momentum that we have. And two, it's just bad business, man, to tell somebody, so it's like you get put in a whole different category, where on the other hand, if you tell somebody, hey, I'll take off work, I'll do whatever, CJ, you've seen him, he's got a great look,
So was he a part of some of the choreography and
yes,
how did you get Matt ready? Because you said he didn't have much jiu-jitsu experience, and I don't know if it was just good filming or if you guys got him ready pretty quick. Because in the movie,
a little bit of both.
Okay.
I mean, of course, there's always tricks in editing, but we would. So the thing with Matt. So CJ, if you watch the credit, he's credited as the martial arts choreographer. Like I said, we didn't really have a lot of time to get together and do. If you watch like behind the scenes on The Matrix or John Wick, these guys are training 6 months out,
right?
3, 4, 5 days a week, 6 months out to get these scenes. So this is an independent feature, but when you do an independent feature, a lot of things are like that. A lot of performances are like that. A lot of everything is like that. But what I would do with Matt is we would get together. I'd get together with one-on-one, and a couple times with CJ, and we would roll and we'd go over position and technique. But even there's technique, which I know you're talking about, but I was concerned mostly with the mindset.
Yeah.
Kind of using Hickson as a mindset of how a jiu-jitsu person would think and perceive the world. Of course, his character is someone who's perceiving it through trauma, perceiving it through all those situations and issues that he's had, but still using these great old school jiu-jitsu guys, these stoic figures of jiu-jitsu as a mental template for them. But then as far as the movements, Matt is extremely athletic and very coachable, picks up technique very quickly. He actually just came, at my gym I teach in Katy. He came and rolled last night.
Nice.
So he was over there last night, and so he's still involved in the culture. But he picks it up very quickly, and since the movie, you could say, his love for jiu-jitsu is just increased. Nice. So he'll probably be doing it for the rest of his life, I hope. Yeah. But so we would just get together and work on technique, and then the day of, or when we ever had a free time with him and CJ, we'd go over, hey, when we do this scene, this is what I'm thinking, and I would relay that to CJ. Then he would kind of like, okay, we can do that. Then from this position, I'll go here. Then I'd say, okay, well, what if, he gets his hooks in right here, well, then he sweeps you right here, because we need this back and forth. We need this conflict back and forth, and ultimately we need him to end up in this certain situation. I'm not going to give it away, but so there was a lot of on the go, run and gun, figuring out along the way, mixed in with, hey, Matt, you've got some free time. We need to work on this. We need to work on that. And like I said, he's a pro, so Matt's really interested in getting into stunt work, which would be great for him.
Nice. Okay.
Because he picks up things quickly and just executes well. So, and then to your other point, when you film something, if you film that one scene of them of their jiu-jitsu match, that's only going to be 2-3 minutes on screen. It's going to take you all day to shoot that.
I was going to ask. It takes about a day to film a 2 or 3 minute fight scene, huh?
Yeah. So you're going to have a lot of footage. I don't care if you did have 6 months you're going to have a lot of bad footage. Or this angle, it doesn't look good, but from this angle, it looks really good. Well, okay, so I'm going to cut to the angle that makes it look good. That's the part of movie magic, which is, you take something and you make it, you can make it turn out. So, and like I said, that's for no matter what how big the set is or how big the film is. So yeah, there's a lot of hard work, a lot of figuring out along the way. Then I should say there's a lot of preparation, then a lot of figuring out along the way. Then ultimately it lands in the hands of the editor, which was me, to make it look like something that's watchable.
Yeah.
So how'd that final scene come out for you? Only say it's good.
It was good. And again, I will reiterate, from my perspective, it was good because it looks like a jiu-jitsu match I see every day when I go to class.
Yeah.
It wasn't two people doing Hollywood sensational stuff it was good.
Well, I've watched a lot of those movies, and to see somebody run down a hallway and do a flying armbar is always like, yes, that looks cool. That's kind of insane to think that's your first go-to move.
Yeah.
So yeah, the goal was that the people looked authentic, the sets looked authentic, and the jiu-jitsu was authentic. So that was my goal.
Yep, I think you captured that. And I think you captured a bit of the jiu-jitsu culture as being authentic as well, too.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about a few things in the movie. Just I find it interesting and might spur some conversation. How about belt whipping when you get a new belt?
It's weird that's like walking the gauntlet. It's controversial now.
It has been for the last few years.
Yeah, and it was just something. And I even, when we were on set, because I already knew it had become controversial, when I started jiu-jitsu, I started 2005.
That's how you got promoted.
That's how you got promoted. To the point where, I know I did this, and a few guys would do this. You're standing in the gauntlet, you just take off your gi and you just throw it down. Like I'm walking this MF without a gi on. What's up now? And of course, that's a horrible decision because they were going about 80% on you. They're going to go now. They're going to go 110%.
Yeah, you just threw out a challenge.
Yeah, you're like, oh, you think I got my blue belt. What's up now? I'm invincible. Yep. But then you realize, oh my God, I'm not invincible. I'm just a blue belt. But
well, I don't think it would be as controversial if it was done the way it was portrayed in the movie more often.
Well, yeah,
in the movie, it was pretty gentle. It was pretty fun. Man, I've seen some guys come out with some welts.
Oh, we've tripped guys and held them down.
Yeah.
And I guess we shouldn't be saying that because it's a kinder, gentler community now.
It is, yep.
A lot more kids training, a lot more women training. But yeah, and the aughts, I guess they're calling it now. It was, if you got a belt, you were happy to go through the gauntlet, But when we were doing that scene, I wanted that scene because it does represent jiu-jitsu to me, especially old school jiu-jitsu, but also from a visual standpoint, I thought it would look cool.
Yeah.
Now, we had adults and kids, and so the scene you're talking about is the intro scene, and so the people that were in the class, those are all people that came out and volunteered their time. People I've known. A lot of those people were black belts. We threw blue belts and purple belts on. Everybody in there was at least a blue belt. And I've known for years. In some of the kids that came out, I've known a little bit less, but, they're all... The kids you see in there are very accomplished jiu-jitsu players.
Okay.
Very accomplished. You've got Dom Vito and Mona Bailey who compete and all the time and do very well, and a bunch of other kids. But I asked them, and I asked the adults. I was asking a room full of experts. We're doing a gauntlet, and kids are going to walk through it. Is anybody doing this at their school? And then a couple were like, and then all the kids were like, yeah, we all do it. I'm thinking, you're lying to me.
Yeah.
You're lying to me. And I was like, we're just shoot it, and if I don't like the way it looks, I'll just. But you could see that they're kind of smiling when they go through it, and visually, it looked good. And then the cues, I was able to match some of the sound effects with the title card that comes in. So there was a. So I ended up keeping it because once I cut together, I thought it was fun.
Yeah.
So that part, I'm sure there is a gym somewhere that's doing the gauntlet for kids. But it also matched just the concept of this gym probably comes from a lineage of old school jiu-jitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu. So I kept it in because it looks cool. I like it. It's fun. But also it matches. This is the kind of gym that would do something like that.
Yeah, you're right about that. For sure. So another jiu-jitsu cultural issue that I thought was interesting that you put in there. Tell me about the conflict on the mat between Garrett and Maxie. Do I have the characters right on that?
Yeah. I play the character of Garrett. That in and of itself, my name is Derrick, but I wrote the character, and I had another actor committed who dropped out again. So you find that in independent film a lot, that people, even accomplished actors, they might do a lot of commercials locally or whatnot. They may not be used to the kind of commitment a feature film would take, in that, hey, you're in 8 pages of this, so it'll probably be 8 days, 10, maybe more days you're on set.
Then they're not back to back, so it's
exactly.
It's a longer commitment.
Yeah, so this week we need you for 2 days. 3 weeks from now we need you for So the character of Garrett, that actor backed out, I should say, not the character, but that actor. I wrote the character as a joke because my name's Derrick, but anytime I go to a restaurant and try to get a reservation, Derrick, they always write it down as Garrett. I've even said Derrick, Derrick, got it, Garrett. They write down Garrett, and I'm like, I don't understand what's happening in society if I spell it and we still can't, like, what's going on? So I just wrote that character, and I think I originally put it in the script. I was like, I'll change it later, and then you just get used to saying it, and that's all she wrote. But that conflict is because I'm a bigger guy, and I've had this conflict at almost every gym that I've been in.
I was going to say, the two guys going nose to nose is something I've probably only seen 2 or 3 times, but the content of the conflict I see every single mat session. So the conflict you're talking about is a smaller opponent and a bigger opponent going. The smaller opponent tells the bigger opponent he's going too hard. He lacks technique. He doesn't understand jiu-jitsu, so on and so forth. My argument is that, well, there's a couple things. One is that you're a smaller guy. Well, Marcelo Garcia doesn't have a problem, one. But if you're telling me that you can go as hard as you want. You can be as fast, as quick, as flexible.
You can get my back, and once you get my back, you're going to sink that choke in, and you're not going to you're not going soft. Let's just call it what it is. And 2, you're putting me in a situation as a bigger guy that now I'm kind of, anytime I go with somebody, I'm worried. So I'm never really going 100%, which to this day I kind of feel like, as a bigger guy, it's like I never really get to go 100% because somebody's going to complain. Wherein I thought Helio Gracie redefined these techniques to benefit the smaller person. So you've got jiu-jitsu that was made specifically for your body type. I do not. So most of this stuff I've got to kind of change and finagle to match my body type. Now, if I was just crushing you, because I have had guys, there are those guys, big guys, that just like to crush people. Usually most of those guys probably aren't going to get past blue belt, probably won't get purple or brown, because there's too many small guys that are good that are just going to break those guys down.
Yep.
So that scene was something that I've lived a bunch, that always astonishes me that I've never really seen a gym owner run to my aid and be like, "Hey, I know this guy. He's a good. Why would you even suggest that?" It's always like, "Hey, man, I guess you guys just working out." So it's happened a lot. It is kind of like a personal thing. Like I'm just here to have fun and roll. If you will face people that are stronger than you, you'll face people that are younger than you, older than you, heavier than you, lighter than you. That's I call that jiu-jitsu. No, I mean, but like I said, there are people that smash people, but that's not the content of the character of Garrett, and it's not the content of me. No, as a jiu-jitsu player as well. So, but it was a fun scene in that the character of Maxie, who Dylan DeWitt played, he's a really phenomenal stage actor. So this is his first feature. So kind of like what you said earlier, his IMDb credits probably doesn't have a lot of IMDb credits, but his play credits, his theatrical credits, are very long. Yeah. And he's very accomplished and in demand in Houston. And he kind of brought that kind of professional stage actor quality, and he's a young guy.
Yeah.
But so the first time we rehearsed that scene, I had the script in hand, he had the script, and I'm like, and Matt was there. I'm like, okay, action, and he just goes into it, and he's in my face. And for the first time, I was like I felt intimidated.
You're like, wait, dude, we're going light.
Yeah, it's like we're rolling light. I thought so immediately I had to amp it up, and so the final product you got, you really see, that we're both in each other's faces. But that kind of like level of intensity that he brought was kind of like, okay, you're rolling with a black belt now. Yeah. So, but yeah, so long story short, yeah, it was a fun scene to do, but comes out of a vast history of of hardship being a bigger guy.
No, I think that's one of the things that if you're not a jiu-jitsu athlete, that's just going to go by you. But for athletes, that makes the movie so much more authentic.
I'm glad, because I didn't know if that was, you go through life and you're only experiencing things through your own vision. So, you get to the point where you leave, you're like, and you get the bad advice where people are like, well, it's got to be you if it happens all the time. Does it really have to be me? So it's good to hear that other people face the same conflict. But just like in jiu-jitsu, ultimately, a lot of those guys you have that conflict with end up being your best teammates eventually. So
yeah, and that was bore out in the movie. The two characters, they kind of parted ways but came back. So that was good. I had one of the guys you saw. For our listeners, we did have a bowl of acai at my local gym before we started this.
It was good.
One of the guys that you met before you got there, he commented to me, he said, man, I need to start working on my pressure passing. He's like 260, 270, and he says, I don't feel like I ever have an opportunity to because everybody else is so much smaller. I'm like, man, just one roll a day, 1 or 2 minutes of a roll. I mean, you don't have to crush everybody, but you're right. Big guys don't often develop the best part of their game because they're worried about being seen as a bully.
Yeah. I think it's a problem, to be honest. But so hopefully everyone will listen to this podcast and get over it.
Yeah, get over it, man. So no, that was good. Let's see. So you've been training for how many years?
Since 2005, so we were going 15? On 15 years.
How do you manage your training when you're knee deep in a project like this? Because I imagine it's tough.
I don't. That's the problem.
So you put it aside?
Well, for this one, hopefully, the thing is, to do your first feature film is such a incredible task of pushing the boulder up the mountain. It's like getting a black belt or something. It's so to do it on this level independently. And what I hear from other filmmakers, they all say that the first feature is the worst, or at least hardest to get going and to get done, and especially get distributed, which we're available on Tubi and Amazon Prime right now for free. But it really is all encompassing. So I've gone through probably 4 or 5 years now where there hasn't been a day where I haven't said the words lion killer. So it's like. And I told my wife the other day, it's like, I was kind of joking with her, but we've got, the big poster that we bring to film festivals. And it was kind of in the corner when we first walk in the door of the house. And she had moved it. And I said, I'm glad you moved it. It's like enough already. I was like, enough lion killer already. It's like every day. And I'm still in that push because now we're in the push where it's distributing out to the world. So I'm doing podcasts like this and trying to do social media, trying to get eyes on the movie is very difficult. But just making the movie is it's such a war of attrition between you and the universe. Making a movie, trying to get a jiu-jitsu black belt, it feels like you can get to a good gym and your supporter. You'll have challenges along the way, but ultimately you've got instructors that want to see you get there. Making a movie feels like the universe is conspiring not to get this film made every day. So we went through, of course, issues with cast and people that were signed on dropping off. We went through Hurricane Harvey.
Tell me about that. But before you do, where we're sitting right now was 2 feet of water in this room.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah. So
that's about what we had.
When we leave, you'll see the blue marks on the trees out in the yard. That's where the water was outside.
Yeah.
So where were you at in the process when Harvey hit?
So that's interesting because we were about to launch crowdfunding.
Okay.
So the thing with crowdfunding, so when I say this is like all encompassing for 4 or 5 years, I mean 10 hours a day, 4 or 5 years just to get a movie done. So we crowdfunded to raise the funds, but what people don't understand about crowdfunding, you don't just start a Kickstarter or a Seed and Spark and then put that on Facebook and that's your crowdfunding. You're really doing 2 months of prep work, a lot of hours in to get to the point where when you launch, people are prepared to give and it's already in people's consciousness and people are already committed to give and so on and so forth. A lot of stuff that drops a lot of people out from being a filmmaker, asking people for money, So I believe we were supposed to, I would say roughly 2 days before, probably a week before crowdfunding launched, Harvey hit. We were displaced. We were spending a few days at in-laws, my sister's family's house, sleeping, but not just us, 3-4 families all together at one house that didn't get affected. And then we got an apartment. We were in a home. We got into an apartment. It's funny the way God works because it's the apartment I lived in when I first went out on my own.
What are the odds of that?
So yeah, so basically I'm literally and figuratively at square one. So and if you're a millennial, you might be like, what's wrong with that? When you're in your 40s, there's a lot wrong with that. You're going to look at that situation like, okay, I'm literally back at square one.
Was there a minute where you felt like throwing the towel in because you're fairly early in it still?
Later, and then I still had some spit, what you could say, piss and vinegar left. But so in an apartment, no furniture, no Wi-Fi, just a cell phone in hand, and now you've got to launch and run a successful crowdfunding. Getting funded, launching isn't hard. Getting funded is hard. So reaching your funding goals is very difficult, and most people fail at it, to be honest. Most people start and, there's not a lot of momentum in the beginning. And if there's not a lot of momentum in the beginning, it becomes exponentially harder. And so just with a cell phone and a roof over your head had to do it. So it was kind of like against all odds having to do that. We ended up being successful with it. And from there, you're still trying to rebuild your life because we lost almost everything in Harvey. So, but the thing is, I've got a team of people that believe in the project. I can't show any, signs of wear and tear.
Yeah, somebody's got to be the leader. Right?
Yeah, somebody's got to be a leader, and I've got to keep them pumped up and keep them with the vision. And we're going to make it, and we're going to make this movie. And you got to, and convince myself of that as well. So we end up getting crowdfunded, and who we went through, Seed and Spark, they send you a text message, congratulations, you're making a movie. And when I saw that, it's like, oh, crap, now I got to make a movie. It's like, it kind of hit home like, okay. So, so we go through that, and then there's just a lot of struggles along the way. I was working full-time job at a television for news, local TV doing news, and working for Houston Community College, editing and being a videographer. Got laid off from both of those jobs in the same week.
Nice.
While we're in production.
Nice.
Yeah, exactly. Same exact week. So now we're a year out of Harvey, and now I'm laid off, so our income is cut probably a little more than half. And there's you just keep going. And there was, just regular things that happen on set, just as far as
just locations dropping. And then, you know, we were originally supposed to shoot part of it in Galveston. And, you know, there's just always stuff like that. We can't really get out to Galveston. We're behind on the schedule. What do we do? So, excuse me. So you've seen the movie, the scene where it's they're in Galveston. That wasn't anywhere near Galveston. But if you've been to Gal, you know, okay, there's a pleasure pier. Okay, whatever. But yeah. But, you know, that's one of my favorite scenes, their first date scene, because it's a lot of fun. You know, it's we found, and I'll just tell the listeners, instead of going out to a pleasure pier in Galveston, there was a local carnival down the street, you know, that set up in a parking lot. Well, so if you watch the film and you pause it, there's not a palm tree around. You'll see in the distance Beltway 8, cars driving on Beltway 8. If you stop it and really say, hey, I'm going to start to nitpick this thing. But as a filmmaker, you're like, it's the story. This scene is the story of where they connect. Yeah. And for other filmmakers out there, the nicest shot of the movie didn't make it in the movie. So there's a shot where if you watch the scene, they go on a date. It's supposed to be in Galveston. It was at a carnival. They do all these rides and they're talking, and then there's an attempted kiss and all this stuff. Well, there's a scene from my DP was they were on the Ferris wheel. There's this beautiful scene of all the rides and everything, just real slow coming down because he was, you know, kind of like a crane shot, but he was seated in the Ferris wheel. Just this beautiful shot. Ultimately, I was given the note by a fellow filmmaker that we needed more of Noel falling for Michael. So that's why at the end you'll see that. Well, I want to challenge the viewer. I don't want to say what it is. I want to challenge the listeners to go watch it. But it ends with a moment of kind of like Noel kind of looking at Michael differently, I think, and you hopefully in a positive manner. So just to challenge any filmmakers out there, be open to notes, be open to change. They call it killing your darlings or killing your babies. There's this shot that you really love, or there's a shot that we spent half a day just to get the shot. That doesn't mean it has to make it in the movie. You know,
that's good advice.
It's like jiu-jitsu. I might have a real sick Kimura, but you know, if something else presents itself, if his neck presents itself, I'm not going to be so committed to the Kimura. I'm going to go for his neck. So yeah.
So what's the process like? I'd not really thought about that before, but for peer review, you take some footage and you just call up a friend and say, hey, can you look at this and give me your opinion? Or do you have a team that's kind of what they do? Well,
I would do that. It would be more open. When I was in film school and doing short films, what I realized was even a lot of fellow filmmakers or your friends, your friends will probably just tell you it's good.
Sure.
And then fellow filmmakers are just going to tell you it's bad. You know.
So where do you go for some feedback?
Exactly. So even when we premiered the movie, I would have my friends that came out who were from film school would come up to me, and people were shaking, oh, it was a great movie. And they would come up and be like, yeah, that one scene, you can see the cameraman in the rearview mirror. Like, shut up, man. I understand I made a feature and you hadn't yet. But nobody, I did notice that, but it's so small, it's so quick, and it's just, you know, so they're really just looking at technical flaws because I think deep down people are trying to stack themselves up next to people. Same thing that happens in jiu-jitsu class.
Yeah, absolutely.
But so to find somebody who's going to give you honest notes that has the wealth of experience and knowledge is very difficult. And it's only through trial and error, you know. So through film school, there's a couple teachers there. And not all teachers there, trust me. But there's a couple instructors at the film school I went to that have a history of making films and can really look at it honest, can remove themselves from the scenario. In other words, I've got no dog in this fight. I'm just going to give you how I see the film and this scene. And even in that, I might use 15, 20% of their notes because some of it isn't right for what I'm trying to accomplish. You know, so the same person that told me about that scene gave me some advice on another scene that I ultimately didn't use because I had a clear-cut idea of exactly how I wanted to execute this scene over here for certain reasons. And this scene over here, I kind of felt like there's something that needs to be tweaked. My omoplata isn't working as well as it should. Something. Oh yeah, scoot your butt out a little bit. Sure. Oh, now it works a lot better. You know what I mean? So half of it is trusting somebody and knowing that they're going to remove themselves, but other half is also knowing your vision and keeping with your vision as well. So
nice. So, are you catching your breath now, or you got something else on the back burner already?
Yeah, I got something on the back burner. It's kind of like we're still in the trenches with Lion Killer. Just like I said, just to get people to watch it. I was telling you earlier, it's just such a. It's simultaneously the best time and the worst time to be an independent filmmaker, because you can make a movie right now. The roadblocks and the what's the word I'm looking for? The key holders, the people who allow you to get into the industry. We've removed that through what's the words I'm looking for? DSLR cameras and Adobe Premiere and things like that. So the roadblocks to make a feature film aren't there anymore, like they used to be. If you've got a good story and some technical ability, a lot of kids now, there's filmmaking classes in their high school. So by the time they're 25, 26, they've done it for 10, 15 years. They're technically up to the challenge. But there's so much content right now. Excuse me.
Yeah, because it just didn't just get easier for you; it got easier for everybody. So
yeah,
the competition, the pool of competition is deep.
So yeah, there's so much content. There's so much. There's just so much out there getting eyeballs. At the same time that when I grew up watching a movie, or if somebody said, "Hey, I'm in a band, I made an album," you made an album? That's incredible. Well, I'm not signed to a label. What does it matter? You made an album. It was like that for movies forever. You know, I made an independent movie. You still made a movie. Where now it's to the point where, you know, I've been given advice, hey, don't say the word independent because people automatically associate that with low quality and all this, you know, so on and so forth. So the advantage I feel I have to get eyes on the film is jiu-jitsu. I believe it's a niche audience, but it's an audience that there's millions of us out there. There's not a lot of content catered towards us, and especially content that's catered and curated by people with a passion for it. So anybody out there that loves jiu-jitsu, please watch the movie and please tell a friend, because if Lion Killer is successful, Hollywood will follow suit, or other independent filmmakers will follow suit. If Lion Killer is successful, there will be more content. Now you're seeing that a little bit, not because of Lion Killer in any way, but you're seeing, I believe, Netflix is coming out with the creator of Narcos. He's doing a series, I think, on the Gracies. Yeah. Okay. And I know there's another film called Jiu-Jitsu with Nicolas Cage, although I believe that's more of a sci-fi
I haven't seen it,
kind of idea, but yeah, please support the film in any way. Follow us on Facebook. Share, post, tell people to watch it if you want to see more stuff about the jiu-jitsu lifestyle come out. So more films.
If anybody wants to meet you and train with you, where can they do that?
Yeah, so two places I train and teach a little bit in Sugar Land, Texas at Sugar Land MMA with Professor Chad Kite. We're a Hoist Gracie affiliate, and then I have my own club in Katy, Texas called Axiom Jiu-Jitsu. And so just look for me. I'm at Rock Solid Martial Arts. That's the name of the place. And I teach jiu-jitsu there. So find us on Facebook, Instagram, all that good stuff.
Yeah. And we'll put some, if you're listening to this, look at the show notes, and there'll be some links to where you can find Derrick. There'll definitely be a link to where you can find the movie. Derrick, anything else we need to cover?
Just please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and become part of our journey. Help us promote in any way. Like I said, my goal is to present an authentic representation of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to the world. So let's get it going.
Yep. And if you take time to watch the movie, leave it a review. And share it with your friends.
Review us on Instagram. I'm sorry, I misspoke. Review us on IMDb and Amazon. If you review us, you leave a review on Amazon, it helps boost the algorithm, and that in turn helps us get the movie seen by more people. So that's a big deal. Reviews.
Perfect. Derrick, thanks so much for
Appreciate
coming
it, man. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you took basically the whole afternoon to be here.
That's all good.
Okay, I'd like to thank Derrick for taking time to sit with me and talk jiu-jitsu. Appreciate him coming on. So it's been a good show. If you like the interview, go ahead and share it with a friend. If you like the show, share it with a friend. That helps us spread the show.
Yep.
I got lost here for a minute.
Hey guys, if you want to train with us, my friends, you can come train with Gary and I in Wichita, Kansas. Joe, where could they find you? Building your pile of bricks.
Well, I don't know if I have the bricks to build anything yet, but they can find me south of Houston. Go ahead, Gary.
Well, I know where you can get a brick so that you can build it. You can get that from the BjjBrick shop all the way at the very bottom.
Man, I've been attempting to order a brick from the BjjBrick shop for about a week now since it's been out, but they're sold out. Apparently somebody else is buying them all. I'm probably going to meet that guy. I'm probably going to meet that guy on the mats.
Oh, you're in trouble.
But yeah, Joe's south of Houston. If you're in the area, or maybe just traveling through, give us a shout on our Facebook page, or just send me an email and I'll get you connected to Joe or Gary, whoever you want to train with. BjjBrick@gmail.com is the email. And we'd love to train with you guys. It's always fun getting to know our listeners better. All right, my friends, I'm excited to bring Gerald Burgos to the BjjBrick Podcast. Gerald, he wrote a post and sent it to the BjjBrick crew, and Joe hopped on and said, this needs to be an article. And you're definitely, you have created a really good article, and you stated at the beginning of it, it kind of relates to a lot of what we talk about in the Jiu-Jitsu podcast, BjjBrick Podcast, as far as kind of off the mat stuff and how it affects life on the mat, and on the mat stuff and how it affects your life off the mat. So, Gerald, welcome to the podcast. Introduce us a little bit about yourself and what you're up to and your jiu-jitsu stuff.
Hi, Byron. Thanks for having me. My name is Gerald Burgos, and I live in San Diego, California. And as far as my BJJ experiences, I'm coming up on 1 year, so I'm pretty novice. The gym I am at is Gracie Baja, Sorrento Valley, and I'm an older starter, so to speak. So I'm kind of like Gary, but older. I'm 53, and it's been a great journey so far. And I guess that's really about it. I don't want to talk too much and bore everybody, but that's basically what I am. And the genesis of my article is I'm a football official in San Diego, and I have been for the past 20-ish years at the youth and high school level.
Yeah, that sounds like a stressful spot to be in. I couldn't imagine being an official on a football field, making calls and dealing with that. But you found some benefit, that kind of crosses both ways.
Yeah, I did. The previous articles and podcasts that I've heard on your shows usually talked about, well, this activity benefited my BJJ for these reasons, and I felt the same way about football officiating. But conversely, it's helped the other way. BJJ has helped my football officiating, and as well as my football officiating helping my BJJ.
Nice. And how so?
From the BJJ perspective, that has helped my football officiating because at Gracie Baja, we're taught about humility. We're taught about having a great attitude and being humble. And that is something that's very, very important to football officiating. And I already thought I knew that as a football official, 20 years in. But when I'm in BJJ, it's a whole, as many people know, it's a whole new perspective about everything, and so it's like when you're doing something for as many years as I have in football officiating, you do it over and over again. It's repetitive. You think you know it all. But when you get a fresh perspective, like I did in BJJ, it invigorates you and you tend to learn more, because no matter how many years you're in any kind of profession or hobby, you're never going to be the expert 100%, learn everything. And you guys pointed it out, about every other podcast, that you're learning in BJJ for the rest of your life. And same thing with football officiating. I'm going to learn for the rest of my life. So from that perspective, it's, that's how it has helped me.
It sounds like you kind of, like, it felt like you knew it all about officiating football. You kind of you got there, and then when you found this new activity, you found you knew there was more to learn in the football area. Is that right?
Yeah. There's certainly a lot more to it. The benefit that I also got was walking into the gym in the first place, because I did learn confidence and everything else as far as football officiating is concerned. But, for years, it took me a long time to even walk into a BJJ gym to try it out, because I heard a lot of people that would say, well, it took me a long time to get the courage and the nerve up to walk into a BJJ gym. I was just like that, except mine took a whole lot longer than most people. And of course I have all these regrets. I should have done this 20 years ago, but like people say, it's the best time to start BJJ is today, and so, I finally did that last year. And so I'm very happy with it. And I think that part of getting the nerve up was, I put it in my head, I should take this from a football officiating standpoint and be confident and just walk in and just check it out. Because on the football field, I have the utmost confidence just walking on the field. I just haven't applied it to my personal life nearly as much as I would like to, but I certainly did that when it came to looking for a BJJ gym. And I don't know why I decided that, but that actually helped me get the nerve up to walk into a gym. And luckily, the gym was very, very welcoming, and I love it.
Yeah, it's funny what we think is going to happen at a jiu-jitsu gym, but in reality, it's a business, and they want your business. If they treat you badly, that's not a very good business model. And go find another gym where they treat you well. And so it's more common than not that it's a nice gym, and people are trying to earn your business and make you a satisfied customer. I can't imagine how. For me, the difference is if I had to go officiate a football game, even if I knew a lot about that, which I don't, I'd be so nervous I'm going to make the entire crowd mad at me. And it's amazing with your confidence with that and all that stuff. Like, you're nervous about walking into a gym where nobody really cares. Like, you're not going to piss off the entire gym as you go in there and you say that something's a touchdown or not a touchdown or whatever. Like, that makes me, the idea of that makes me nervous versus the idea of just getting on the mat and doing some grappling. But it's just, what are you comfortable doing? You've done that for 20 years. That's amazing.
Yeah, it is. It certainly takes a certain type of person to do that, because, getting screamed at is not a normal thing to endure for anything.
Yeah.
Which is why our numbers are always, we're always struggling, to have numbers. But the particular association I'm with, it's kind of like in BJJ. We have veteran officials who I learned from through the years, who were very welcoming, because they want to build, just like you said, build the business. They want to build the association. And so, and now I've been in that seat for a long time. Any new guy that comes in, new girl or guy that comes in, it's in our best interest to be welcoming and to teach and to calm the nerves and to tell them it's okay and instill some of our confidence into them, because if we just say, just God, you screwed that up, ha ha ha, well, we're going to lose that person. So, why in the world would I want to lose people? And then all of a sudden, because we're short of officials, I'm doing 4 or 5 games a Saturday instead of 2 to 3. So it would be in my best interest to have officials, good officials. And plus you gotta love it. I mean, and I hear you guys talk about BJJ, you know what, you gotta love it. And I'm finding out that I do love it in BJJ. I hope I can stick it out as long as my body will carry me. But, it's just such a great thing. And officiating and BJJ, but yeah, in officiating, you got to make snap decisions and, endure a lot of pressure. And like I had mentioned in the article, I learned about pressure in a whole different way from BJJ, and it helped both ways as well. So, it helped me deal with pressure in different ways. Although I mentioned that I wouldn't want to be doing some kind of, armbar or a choke on a coach. That's not the right thing to do. But I learned about pressure in a different sense, which is really a great tool on both ends.
How long did it take you to stop being nervous when you walked out on the football field, do you think? Was it a couple games, couple years, a decade or two? Like, how long until you didn't get a little nervous just starting this job?
Okay, I'll preface it with this. About every season, I'm nervous.
Okay.
But it's being excited. But as far as being nervous, like deer in the headlights, it took about 2-3 years, because the best thing, and I know you're going to tie us into BJJ, and it's absolutely true. Knowledge is power. As long as I knew the rules and the rule books and understood it, no matter how much the coaches or players or people are yelling, I've got the knowledge on my side. And the only thing that we can do without raising our voice is quote the rules. What is the rule? And then I imagine, and I'm still learning this, in BJJ, if you know the rules, meaning like, what move to do, when you counter, when you're rolling or something, I'm imagining that if you knew what move to do next, that would instill more confidence. And in BJJ, I'm still deer in the headlights, so I'm really learning that part. But on the field, I'm just armed with rules, and the rules are pretty much the same every year. And we still have to take tests, and we still have to go to a clinic, and we still have to do everything. We just don't walk in and say, well, here I am, let's have games. We actually go through classes and everything to reinforce everything. So, that's why it's like, oh, this, BJJ is kind of like that. I got to take classes seriously and study up a little bit in order to be more confident and more knowledgeable in the craft or the hobby or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, that's a great way to explain just how you're feeling out there, and you getting confidence from knowing the rules, knowing how the game is played and what should be called and that sort of thing. And you relate it perfectly to jiu-jitsu. The more you know about how to do something or what to do, that's a lot of help. And I tell a lot of people who are beginning, if you're in a situation where you're confused and you don't know what to do, like let's just say you don't know how to escape a type of side control, maybe it's Kasamatami, or they're doing something that you don't know, wiggle to a way that it's a side control you can escape. Just get it somewhere where you're familiar with that spot. And in football, you've got yourself to a situation where you're pretty much familiar with whatever's going to happen, and you know what rule applies to when. And that's a great thing. And that's what we're trying to do in jiu-jitsu. We're trying to get familiar with different situations, and you know what to do. That's one of the worst feelings in jiu-jitsu is like, well, I don't know what to do here. I'm in some weird guard, and I don't know if I need to be pushing on his leg or trying to disengage his arm. What's the priority? I don't know, and that's probably going to be a good spot for him to be in.
Yeah, exactly. I'm definitely in that boat because I'm in someone's guard a lot, and I'm like, what do I do next? Do I stand up? Oh, he's going to grab my ankle. It's well, okay, if I stand up, and have the arm locked over here, oh my God, he just rolled me over. And so I'm still learning, and and the great thing is that even though I'm getting beat or whatever, I keep listening to your podcast and reading stuff and saying, well, it's not about winning, it's about rolling and learning. And it's the same thing in officiating. No matter what calls you make, you're still learning, and just stay calm and look past. Don't think about the last play. Move forward. And so I think BJJ is probably going to be like that for me. Don't worry about getting choked that last round. Just move forward and learn. So that's how I see it so far.
That's awesome. That's just the way kind of life is. You just, if something doesn't go your way, or it's a learning thing, and try to move on. Obviously try to prevent bad things from happening to you and people you care about. But things are going to happen, and try to get past that, learn from it. Try to make it into a positive in some respect, and just move on. It's hey, we all make mistakes. We all have things to learn, from those mistakes. Hopefully we can learn from those and not repeat them. But and keep going. Gerald, I really appreciate you hopping on here. The article is on the BjjBrick website. It's how BJJ helped me with officiating football, and it's a fun read, and I really appreciate you sharing your perspective.
Well, thanks for even looking at the article and considering this. I really appreciate it, and as always, I'll continue to listen.
Want to give a shout out to some of our Patreon supporters, Jamie, Adam, and Emma. Wow, guys, thank you for your continued support on Patreon. And if you want to support the podcast, you can pledge like $1, $2, or $3 per episode, and the money goes and it keeps us doing what we do, and maybe even elevating the quality even higher. I know you could hardly believe it, but we have places to go.
You can't get the quality any higher, Byron.
Well, how's it going to go? It wouldn't go lower. It can't go any lower.
Yeah, I guess you're right about that.
It is what it is, guys.
In reality, we're looking to replace one of these guys, and we need to find somebody that could take the pay that person would get, zero, and roll it into somebody else's salary. And
we actually gave somebody an audition on this episode for our article, so we'll see if Gerald replaces me or if he replaces you.
Yep. Hey, send us an email or go on Facebook and let us know who Gerald should be replaced. We do listen to our fans, so let us know. And I think I'm probably the guy who's going to draw the short straw. I'm the bottom 10%, the Peter Will style.
Yeah, if we listen to our listeners, that'd be and just like that, Gerald had his own show.
Well, I have been thinking about starting my own podcast and adventures of a young man's repoing game. So that's what I'm thinking of doing.
All right, guys, it's been a fun episode, and I get what excited for next week. But stay sweaty, my friends,
and don't forget to shower.
Train hard, train smart, get better, guys. We'll see you on the mats.
And go watch Lion Killer.
Go watch Lion Killer.
And don't forget to vote to who Gerald should replace, which one of us.
Thank you for listening. I hope you find the time today to roll. After all, the best way to get better at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.